Hey everybody, happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to another edition of Midas Letter RAW. And Ed and I were getting our pictures taken for promotional materials a little earlier, and we were posing, making ourselves look tough.
Yeah. Little fold out action.
Yeah, and the market's getting tough.
What's going on here?
Oh, somebody's playing with you, Ed.
Oh.
Ooh, there's that conversation again, trending towards the ribald.
Right. R-I-B-A-L-D.
R-I-B-A-L-D, ribald.
Yeah.
Are you feeling ribald right now?
Yeah, you know what? We're sort of like Randy, isn't it?
I know. Randy's my middle name.
Right. Ribald's my middle name.
Really? Mount Ribald? Have you ever been?
I've been rivaled, but I've never been ribald.
Have you ever climbed to Mount Ribald? Anyways, getting off into a bit of a tangent there.
S&P down, wheat stocks down, gold up.
Big surprise there. Gold way up.
Yeah, hitting 1550, 1553, bouncing around in there. I think the last I looked it was 1551 on the futures month.
Right, but most importantly, what do we got? Higher highs and higher lows.
And silver.
Silver, hi-ho, silver.
You know, we were talking about a ratio of 88 to 1.
Yes.
That ratio is now 85 or 84 to 1.
It's gone up.
No, the ratio's gone down.
You said we were saying it was 88 to 1.
Yeah, now it's
83.
84.
85.
84.
84?
83.
You're right, it is lower.
Yeah, so does that mean? That means that the bigger
ratio is
number
tightening.
divided by the little number yields a smaller amount. That means
Do you
the
think
bigger.
anybody out there notices that we're right more often than we're wrong?
Well, I think if they did, we'd have more viewers.
I think, though, that most people are busy listening to the mainstream financial media.
They are, but they'll come in tonight. They'll go look for those rogue announcers.
Did you hear about Rob Gronkowski joining CBD Medic Partners?
Is he the football player?
Yeah, I've got it on my screen right now.
Gronk.
Rob Gronkowski, three-time football world champion, has now joined CBD Medic. CBD Medic, trading at $7 a share, only has 11 million shares out. Why do I care? Why should you care? It's probably one of the only stocks in the cannabis space that's going up right now.
I think he's retired.
You think?
I think he retired last year, or the year before.
He couldn't play football and be the voice of CBD Medic.
He's the real Polski Ogórki, just to say.
Why, you're saying he's Polish?
Right.
Rob Gronkowski?
What the hell would make you think that?
Well, Rob doesn't sound like a Polish name to me.
No, how about Gronkowski?
Well, I don't know.
It's actually Gronkowski.
That could be like Italian, for all I know. Russian, Ukrainian.
No.
Georgian?
SKI Polish.
SKI Polish. All right, if you say so.
If you want to be a ski, you're Polish. If you want to be a sky, you're probably Russian or Czech.
Really? Yeah.
Or Ukrainian.
Latvian. We have an interesting show today, as per usual, coming up this afternoon. Alessandro Bruno is going to be here. He is our in-house financial correspondent. Suzanne Garcia is going to be the news nurse. And then, a little bit later in the show, Mark A. Beauvais is going to be here. He is the CEO of Bone Structure. Now, if you don't know what Bone Structure homes are, you need to go visit their website at bonestructure.ca. These are zero-carbon engineered homes that are all the rage right now across Canada. These guys will build you a home, and your entire home has zero carbon footprint, and you produce more energy than you consume. In other words, you can be off the grid completely. What? And why am I excited about this? Because they're going to build me a house next year. Yeah! Woohoo! Anyways,
what about? So why? Maybe I'm a little
Fuzzy?
thick in the head.
thick
Why do they call the company Bone?
structure?
Yeah.
Well, there's a good question for the CEO. We'll ask him when he gets here.
Okay.
If that's all right with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one question. Do they, when they quote a house, like builders usually quote so much a square foot to build,
Yeah.
do they do that as well?
I haven't had that much of a conversation with them yet, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it easily breaks down to that when they give you a price. If they just say, how many square feet do you want? And they say, well, it's going to cost you $500,000. You do the math.
Yeah. I guess that's another way of looking at it, right?
So Ed, you got a bit of a cold, I've noticed.
I've got a runny nose. It was a bit of a faucet today.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm gonna catch your disease?
Maybe I already caught it from you.
God. From me? No, I haven't had a cold in ages. Epitome of health over here. 10 days non-drinking, non-smoking, no drugs, no heroin, nothing.
You're clean as a whistle.
Clean and tidy. Clean and tidy.
Clean as a whistle.
Yeah, even my marbles are coming back, which I had
Really?
lost, but now I'm starting to find them.
Right.
Here, there, and everywhere. It's quite a sensation, not drinking and smoking.
And you know what? You like not doing it, but after a while you get bored.
Well, the tightness in my chest and the shortness of breath every time I take 5 steps, that's eased up a bit.
Is it?
Yeah. And the solid pain in my chest, that's been there for like 2 years, it's gone.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you seeing a physician?
No. Are you a physician?
No, but you might want to see one.
No. I don't really like doctors. Doctors, no, I'm just kidding. I don't have all those symptoms. But I could if I kept smoking and drinking the rate I was. Jesus.
Right. So, okay, so we're going to...
Let's dive into the S&P, shall we?
okay.
I have a new system. I've actually decided that I'm going to use the same system that our friend Dan McDermott uses at tradingview.com. And the reason I'm going to use this view should be apparent in just a moment. Invalid password. What? The hell's going on? Alex. Huh. Oh, there we go. We're back. But yeah, so let me put in the SPX here and
Excuse me for
follow
honking my
full
horn.
featured chart. Now, this is why I'm following this, because I get these giant, beautiful charts that are extremely configurable just with the touch of a mouse.
Yeah.
Like I can say, oh, let's just zoom in over
Yeah,
here.
I like that charting system.
Let's go in over here. Let's take a look at what's happening. Oh,
That's
wow.
that's a daily, right?
Yeah. So the S&P is just down 1.34% now.
So that's 2 points.
Oh, wait a sec. No, that's because I had it stretched out too far. Boy, oh boy.
You had it stretched out way too far.
No, this is the intraday look. Intraday, it is down 0.3 right now. So it's kind of trending back towards even.
So you just look at that graph, look at that thing. Does it look like that congestion that we're seeing over the last week or two? Like, what if you just sat here and said to yourself, which way is that going to break?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, never mind. Look at this. Look at this candle here at. Oh, that's this August 29th. What the hell? Oh, I see. There we go. August 27th. There we have it. Oh, right. Okay. So the market opened steeply higher this morning.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it opened higher and then sold off. And as it sold off, gold rallied. There's a trade there. As people get worried about a recession, gold seems to be the main beneficiary, although silver put on over 50 cents an ounce today. That's a big move for silver. That's one of the biggest moves I've seen in a while.
No kidding.
Excuse me.
Well.
So the question is, I mean, the gold can really go crazy here if the markets roll over,
Right.
and as time's going to.
So if the S&P 500 has a big downer day, like last Friday it had a big downer day. If it has like a significant percentage drop, 4 or 5 or 6%, do you think that that's a buy signal for gold the next week?
You know what? I think the buy signal's already taken place. It's just about timing, right? Like, I think the trend now on gold is definitely up. The S&P I'm not really sure about because it's still close to the high. So if anything, it's sort of going sideways. But if the market backs off, gold's going higher.
Yeah.
That's my view. Look at silver. Like I say, silver's been dead.
Here's Suzanne Garcia with some news.
Now, Bruno's coming.
Here's what's making cannabis headlines this Tuesday, August 27. Canopy Rivers Inc. released its financial results for the 3 months ended June 30th, 2019. During Q1 2020, Canopy Rivers generated operating income of $2.7 million, primarily driven by royalty, interest, and lease income. Operating expenses for Q1 2020 were $5.8 million, of which 64% related to share-based compensation. A significant portion of this non-cash expense relates to options granted to non-employees, which occurred at an early stage in the company's growth. Rivers' net loss was $2.8 million, or 2 cents per share. Ianthus Capital Holdings reported its financial results for the fiscal second quarter ended June 30, 2019. Amounts are in US dollars. Ianthus reported revenues was $19.2 million, with a gross profit margin excluding fair value items of 47.9%. Net loss for the Q2 period was $9.29 million, or 6 cents per share. Cash and cash equivalents at the end of the quarter was $30.5 million. Pharmacello announced its financial results for the second quarter ended June 30, 2019. Pharmacello announced total operating expenses of $8.8 million with a net loss of $10.7 million. Cash and short-term investments at the end of the quarter was $33.2 million. Green Thumb Industries announced its Illinois Social Equity License Application Assistance Program, which will help educate applicants about the adult use cannabis business application process and prepare them to apply for the available categories of licenses. Beginning September 4, 2019, GTI will host weekly office hours with its in-house license application team for private consultations and group sessions at its headquarters in Chicago. Sundial Growers Inc. has been added to the portfolio of the Horizons Marijuana Life Sciences Index ETF. This follows the addition of Sundial to the North American Marijuana Index, the underlying index of HMMJ. TerraSend Corp announced the early exercise of purchase warrants to acquire proportionate voting shares representing 28.6 million common shares of the company. Aggregate proceeds equates to approximately $31.5 million. The company has agreed to issue to the warrant holders additional purchase warrants to acquire a total of 8.59 million common shares. Each incentive warrant entitles the holder to purchase one common share at an exercise price of $7.21. The proceeds from the warrant exercised are expected to be used to fund the company's recently announced growth initiatives. And that's your news for today. If you want to hear more on the cannabis sector, check out Cannabis Daily at MidasLetter.com.
And we're back now, and my guest in this segment is our own Alessandro Bruno. Alessandro, how are you?
Okay, thank you.
All right, Alessandro, tell me about your take on the cannabis industry. Where are we at in this cycle?
Well, the cannabis industry is pretty new, but I see it as the tech sector in the late 90s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're going to have a number of players, and I think eventually perhaps some M&A. And we'll see who the winners are. Now, who's going to win? That's the big question. I think the companies with the most, it's not enough to have a good plant and a good recipe. You've got to have the distribution.
Right.
Build the market. And there are a few companies that we have that I like a lot.
Okay. So cannabis, I mean, you came to the cannabis game late, so to speak,
yeah.
and but you're more of a sort of a hard money kind of mining gold, precious metals,
Yes.
monetary interested guy, and so you must be somewhat excited about the recent increase in the price of gold.
Yes, and as someone was mentioning earlier, the silver is going up a lot. Usually, it's silver that leads gold. So this is a very positive trend. It's a confirmation, I think, of where we're going with gold.
Okay, and where is that?
Higher.
Higher?
Yeah, much higher. I don't want to put a price, but I tend to look at stocks and investments from a geopolitical perspective. And what I see happening in the world right now certainly suggests gold. Indeed, as far as the big stocks, the Dow and so on, I like the defense stocks. Not because I like wars. In fact, I abhor wars and I don't like defense companies. But if you want to make money, defense stocks, given the geopolitical climate, we have a new Cold War with the INF Treaty gone. There's going to be a lot more investment in missile production and new technologies, hypersonic missiles and so on. And China is now the big superpower that the US will challenge for at least the next 25 years. Of course, it's a fruitless challenge. I think China will prevail. It's inevitable.
Just by sheer population superiority?
Population, and it's the course of history. We always have one empire, one power superseding another.
So this would be, well, if China were to rise as the global superpower, then this would be their second time around.
Their second time around, and it's a long way coming. They are determined to get there.
If there's anything left of the planet by the time they succeed.
Well, it's 25 years.
Yeah.
They've set a huge goal, and they're doing it not just by military. They're setting up their economic and trade empire with this new One Belt Road Initiative. That's something to look at very carefully.
Do you think that there's any threat to the Chinese sort of government as it exists in its totalitarian communist format as a result of the individuals, Chinese citizens' desire for a democratic society?
Well, I'm not sure how much the democratic movement in Hong Kong, for example, it seems to be mostly a student movement. And I wouldn't be too worried about it from a Chinese perspective, because Hong Kong is no longer as important to China as it was 10 years ago. There's a new city across the strait from Hong Kong called Shenzhen, which has now become far more important to China. That's where Huawei, Tencent, and all the other technology companies are based. And Hong Kong actually became richer thanks to China and Beijing. So the Chinese, I think, are not going to. They understand now the PR that's involved with Tiananmen Square images still being played out. They're not going to send in the tanks.
Really?
No,
So
I think they're going to let them
learn from the West.
I think that they have, but also they've learned from PR.
Right.
They're going to gradually, wane them off and just absorb, and also hoping that as the students go back to classes, as university begins, that these will fade, just as the yellow vests faded in France.
Right.
Then they have there's no leadership that they can really push a revolutionary movement.
So there's, do you think they're just going to wean them off of freedom slowly?
Slowly, but eventually I think China itself is going to become freer, evolve.
Right.
They've had enough of revolutions, and they've seen what happened to Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union, total disaster.
Right.
With the economically
Basically,
speaking.
all the criminals took over.
And then you needed someone like Putin to restore and put the pieces back together.
Another criminal.
Yeah, well, we can discuss that, but I think most Russians think that under Putin they have improved.
Huh.
And that's why they keep supporting him.
Right.
So I think China's learned from those lessons, and we'll see an evolution.
Okay.
I think it's inevitable that the government will change in China, and I think they understand that because the middle class is growing.
So you think they're going to become more overtly democratic, or rather overtly free market, not necessarily democratic?
Gradually, it's going to be more, they want to build that middle class economically first, and then gradually increase the level of political freedom.
Okay, and so then how is that going to, how do you see that the whole geopolitical, or rather the geoeconomic landscape playing out with all of the G7 countries printing negative bonds, negative yielding bonds, with all of the signs of recession flashing, which threaten to take China with them, especially if this issue that's sort of emerging in the media now about all this concealed corporate debt in China that is not really being disclosed, is not really being allowed to reflect on the real numbers of GDP in China. Do you think that, in a global recessionary environment, is China's agenda enhanced, or is the Axis agenda enhanced, Allied agenda
The
enhanced?
Axis is another story.
Whoops.
Yeah,
Right.
but
I mean,
yeah,
if the new Axis were to be China, Russia, and the new allies were to be the West.
well, I think this is what you bring up is why it's so important to look at geopolitics now, because it's going to be a central theme in investment and economics and in international relations. What China is really banking on this One Belt Road and the developing away from the West. So they're focusing on developing Asia and the Eurasian continent, linking it to the West, yes, but really it's about building the networks within that continent. And that's
Sure.
why Russia is, for example, completely tied into China, and those economic moves by Trump, banning Huawei from the United States and putting sanctions on China and so on. It almost played into Huawei's hands.
Sure.
It made them more self-reliant.
Right.
And they're just going to grow from there. So I think you have to be very careful what's happening. Certainly the recessionary pressure all the signals are pointing to it. We're 1 or 2 years away from something, and Europe is at major risk with the German economy showing the biggest signs of recession right now, and being host to the most problematic bank, which had trillions in derivatives.
Right.
After the Lehman Brothers
Bank.
example. Yeah, Deutsche Bank.
Sure. So for me, I'm watching the whole scenario unfold, and as Deutsche Bank's share price continues to dwindle towards zero, I think that could be the trigger of the real resumption of the recession that began in 2009 and was only temporarily offset by quantitative easing and zero interest rate policy.
I have to agree with you. I think it was just a pause, and completely artificial.
Yeah.
And a pause fueled by zero or practically negative interest rates. Nobody's saving anything. But also we have, in Europe in particular, a real resentment. Nobody's salary has grown in ages, real salary and buying power. There's a lot of a new kind of poverty. Everyone can eat and survive, but nobody can aspire. There's no hope.
Right.
Whereas, for example, in the 50s and 60s in Europe, there was a major optimism. Everything was possible. Education and technology were going to save us, and even if you were living in a poor situation, there was the aspiration was there too, that things were going to get better. We don't have that anymore, and particularly in the West.
Right.
So, how is that going to play out in the stock markets as well? Who's going to want to? The psychological element of investing is going to be very important. The next few decades. We can look at stocks from any number of angles, it's going to be a very interesting world to explore.
For sure. Okay, so then Alessandro, finally you say buy defense stocks, you say buy gold, buy silver. Is there any other asset class that you think investors can look at for protection?
Well, given the recession, I would say buy poor people stocks.
Okay.
Like
What do you mean by that?
cheap stores.
Cheap stores,
retail.
so Dollar General.
Yes, but also recreation. What happened during the Depression? Movies, for example, were huge. Entertainment was huge. So in that respect, cannabis stocks, I think, have a real high potential.
Right.
Because people are going to be looking for some kind of relief.
Yeah.
And now that that relief is legalized and increasingly being legalized.
Right. Okay, great. Well, we'll leave it there for now. Alessandro's writings can be read on our website at midasletter.com. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll come back right after this. Let's talk about Aurora. Recently, your financials, you more or less delivered on
Here are the
what?
headlines moving markets today.
If you're lucky to buy it 3 days ago at 37 cents,
And I think it has a lot to do with some of these smaller names giving really
Recreational cannabis is here. It's
Yeah.
quite dry. So I'm going to eliminate the stocky bits. And we're back, and the price of gold continues to rise. The S&P continues to sort of resolve itself to the upside again. It's just down 0.24% at this time.
well, the S&P.
Yeah, 0.24% down, just a whisker down. You think they're propping the markets up down there in the United States?
Well, they say that, that when you look at the government intervention in Japan, for instance, and other countries, it's like the only buyer is
Yeah.
the government.
Really?
This can't end well, can it? Like the whole thing can't end well.
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think if you own a piece of property with a bunch of organic chickens and a pile of gold buried under your
Or
house,
you know anybody who just bought a farm lately?
you got to, you're going to need a lot of weapons. You're going to need a lot of guns, and you're going to need
That's
to
what the Fed has, lots of weapons.
everybody. The Fed has weapons?
Yeah, they have weapons to mollify the predicament they've got themselves into, like quantitative easing. That's a weapon.
That's a weapon?
QE.
I don't know, but
We have the
talking
QEW.
about
They have the QE.
I'm talking about tangible weapons that you can use to blow people's heads
Tangible
off
weapons?
if they try to
What,
steal
like
your
gold?
shit. No, like guns.
Gold's a tangible weapon.
No, it's not really.
Yeah, if you own gold, you have a weapon against inflation.
Well, that's a good point.
There you go. See?
And if somebody tries to climb your walls and you drop a ball of gold on their head, they'll probably cave in their head.
Gold's pretty heavy.
Gold's like one of the heaviest.
Why
elements.
does silver tarnish and gold doesn't? That's a good one. And because gold is inert.
Gold is inert?
Yeah.
I thought gold was a mineral.
No, gold's in the earth.
Gold's in an element.
In the earth.
What about silver? Why does silver tarnish and
I know.
gold doesn't?
Gold, because I guess it's a cheap gold. Cheap gold tarnishes.
Poor man's gold. So-
L'argent.
If the price of silver generally is 1/10 the price of gold, in the very rough,
What do you mean 1/10? 1/100th? Just saying.
Right.
It's 88 to 1.
right, 1/100th, I mean.
No, that's okay. That's why I'm here.
Okay, great, Ed. If the price is generally 1/100th of the price of gold, does that indicate that there is 1/100th as much silver in the Earth's crust as there is gold?
No, there's 100 times maybe.
100 times more silver.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, of gold.
Yeah.
There's 1/100th
There's
amount of gold.
There's
quantitatively.
more silver,
Yes.
less gold.
Right. By a
rarer.
factor of 100.
And you know what I've
Or
noticed?
88.
Yeah.
Is it 88 or is it 100?
85.
85 is the actual ratio in the Earth's crust?
No, 85 is the actual ratio of the prices right now.
Yeah, okay. But so what's the ratio of gold to silver
In the
that's
world?
mineable in the
world?
Earth's crust?
Well, you know what? I think there's a bit of a problem with that because a lot of silver is used industrially,
and that means used up?
used up, and I don't know if you
Transformed.
can use up silver.
Well, being matter, it can only be transformed. It can't be destroyed.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah,
What is silver transformed into through industrial uses?
gold.
Oh, that's
No,
the
I don't
alchemy
know.
thing. Are you an alchemist?
No.
Do you know what an alchemist does?
Yeah.
What does an alchemist do?
Tries to change the chemical composition of an element to something else.
Yeah. Let's take a look at our mining stocks, shall we?
Okay. Which ones?
Well, I don't know. Which ones do you like? Let's look at the indexes here, and we'll just start to get really depressed.
I'll blow my nose here on the show.
What the hell's going on with the internet? It's all slow and shit.
Oh,
Look at this. Okay, so here's the S&P, or the S&P. The Midas Letter Large Cap Index has now fallen below 7,000 for the first time since December
Okay.
2018.
I think we got a tradable rally coming in again in weed. Remember how we did it that one time? Remember we got good thing we sold, eh? Holy shit, $8
rally-
ago.
Which rally was that?
Remember we bought weed? I said I was going to buy some weed here on the show.
Yeah. You mean marijuana?
No.
You mean the
stock.
And did you?
Yes, and you did too.
Did I?
Yeah.
And what happened?
And it went up.
And we sold it?
Yeah.
And made money?
Yeah.
Come on, I don't believe that. When was that? I don't remember that.
Yeah, you should maybe get your memory checked out.
No. I remember everything just fine, Dave. No, wait, your middle name was Richard. How
Okay,
come-
so yeah, look at it's down 6%. That index has not been down 6% very much.
No, eh?
I got to think that we're getting close, but I'm getting gun shy.
But is it going to be like, what kind of rally is it going to be? Is it going to be like of the dead cat bounce variety, or more of the like, holy shit, this thing's turned around, everybody back into the pool?
I know. That's the problem.
Well, which is it?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I thought you knew everything.
I know nothing. I know one thing. Look, you got one blue one up there, August 27th, and the rest are...
MJAR, M. Hardeen.
It's up?
Yeah. It's the only one that is. Big hello to Nikodomi. She says she's an alchemist. She can change bad energy into beneficial energy.
Right.
Nika, we have to get you back on the show. Oh, I think you're coming on Thursday, aren't you?
Maybe Friday.
Maybe Friday too. The JG, hello. Carl Bowden, hello to you. Matthew Bradshaw. I bought weed on crack, yes, and then I bought some more crack when I was high. Ivan Black, hello, Ivan. Good to see you here. Whole bunch of new faces. Well, maybe not. I better not say them because they'll be like, what the fuck? I'm not new. You're just out to lunch.
New to you.
New to you. So tell us what you think of our new interface there. We've got heat map. We've got the chart up of the whatever it is that we're talking about. We've got this little window sailing past.
I got a question for you.
Okay, lay it on me.
So that map there of the big index includes all the big companies. Or is that, that's the marijuana big index, correct? Bottom right. That I'm looking at over here.
Yes. That's
So if you look at weed, for instance, weed's breached the low of last Christmas.
Yes.
And yet, the index hasn't breached the low.
No.
So that means weed's acting worse than a lot of them are,
Yeah.
of the big ones. I guess because Charlotte's Web's in there, right?
Charlotte's Web is let's see, is Charlotte's Web in the large cap? I think it's not, because it was supposed to be originally configured as only Canadian large caps. Because back when we started configuring this, there were no US large caps. Yeah, this is all Canadian companies, all Canadian large caps.
Wow.
So yeah, CWeb is not in there. CWeb is in the CSE index though, which we'll take a look at right now. I'm going to pull it up over here. Down 7% again today.
You know what? It's getting a little bit much.
Self-destructing
Right in front of your eyes.
before our very eyes. This is not good. This is the whole cannabis sector basically disintegrating before our very eyes. But you'll notice that the level of the CSE has not reached the low of December 2018 yet. like the large cap has. And do you know why that is, Ed? Because so many companies came to market in that time frame that were large cap companies on the CSE.
Right.
So this is why the CSE is at 2136. The Canadian large cap index is at 6,600, we'll call it. So it's conceivable that the CSE could actually become the bigger market cap index of cannabis companies than is the Canadian one, especially if cannabis is not legalized federally in the United States before more of these US deals are ready to go public. Now, wouldn't that be something? The CSE having a larger market cap representation of a given sector than the TSX and the TSXV combined. The TSXV representation of the whole sector, like let's go look at so this is the TSX Venture Index, is only 559. So this index started at let's see, where did it start? It started at 70. And it's 559. So this thing's it's given back everything. This one's going back to 2017, the TSX Venture, making the TSX Venture Index the worst performer for cannabis stocks in Canada. But look at that, Organogram down to 548. Whoever thought we'd see Organogram down that low? 548, Organogram with some quality revenue numbers. G-Tech Holdings down to a quarter. Some of these are going to zero.
G-Tech, they are going to, I hate to say it, but some of these are going to zero. So you got to ask yourself, if some of these look like they got to a price they can't go lower, they're going lower. Because they may not be able to raise money.
They might not be able to raise money. Is he mic'd up?
Yeah, so
Okay.
you to your point, yeah, G-Tech, quarter.
Yeah. All right. Can I see his name? No, I can't. Not yet. So what do you make of all that?
It looks brutal. It looks brutal, but maybe that's some of the reasons why gold's starting to look better. Because what everyone thought marijuana stocks are going to do, now that they're not doing it, people are looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you know how much cash Warren Buffett's companies are sitting on?
How much?
$122 billion.
Okay.
And so that's another reason to think that maybe he thinks the market's overvalued, and therefore he's got all this money ready to go in and buy up the bargains.
Oh, interesting. When we come back, Marc A. Beauvais is going to be here. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Bone Structure Homes. Visit them
Follow
at
us on
Bone
Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Make sure you never miss a show by subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking on the little notifications bell. If you're interested in getting monthly actionable investment ideas in the cannabis space to your inbox, subscribe to the newsletter at MidasLetter.com. If you like the show, you'll love our website. Visit us at www.MidasLetter.com for interviews with key CEOs, cannabis news, and to subscribe to our newsletter.
Let's talk about Aurora. Recently, your financials, you more or less delivered on
Here are the
what?
headlines moving markets today.
If you're lucky to buy it 3 days ago at 37 cents,
I
you
think
get
it has a lot to do with some of these smaller names giving really
Recreational cannabis is here. It's
Yeah.
quite dry. So I'm going to eliminate the stocky bits. And now, joining me is Marc Beauvais. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Bone Structure. Marc, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Marc, I feel like I should disclose to the audience that I came across Bone Structure when I started looking for a zero carbon footprint home. And probably the most prevalent ones on the internet from where I searched was Bone Structure. And also, as I got to see more about them, they're so beautiful that I'm at risk of becoming a client here in the next 12 months.
That would be okay with us?
That would, eh? So tell me about Bone Structure. How did the company get started, and what's the driving philosophy behind them?
Well, I'll give you the short version. Back then, I was part of the management at Bombardier, this well-known company, traveling all over the world. My wife calls me up and she says, we're going to buy a teardown. In fact, she was buying it already. And we're going to do this dream home. So we hired the architects, we hired the engineers, and we got them playing, and we told them at one point that we wanted to live into that house while we were alive and get things moving.
While you were alive. I can sympathize with that.
You can see with that.
Yeah.
And so we got bids from 5 different builders in our community, and it came back with a delta of 72%.
Huh.
Which was like,
Right.
So I got worried, knew nothing about the construction industry. I looked into it. I dived down really seriously. Looked at every traditional construction method around the world, look at all the different prefabs, all the different modulars, and started this project the traditional way, and with an entrusted builder. Sure enough, I had the Six Sigma approach that we were basically implementing at Bombardier, very specific with the Gantt chart and everything else. My builder didn't expect that; he almost was scared away.
Right, he must have been nervous.
With all that, what he had signed before that, with all that extreme planification, you would have thought that everything would have been perfect. Well, we ended up in a hotel room, my wife, and with our 4 kids, which kind of drove me nuts because I'm sort of a perfectionist. So that's where I really digged down and dived down into every possible construction method out there, put some people to research it, and got to understand that this industry is molecular. It's driven by a 100-kilometer radius. 95% of the builders out there have good intentions, and they're within 100 kilometers, so they build 3 houses or less per year. So we had to come up. Well, I decided to invest and do a basic startup and hired people from the aerospace industry, engineers that knew nothing about the construction industry, that would not be settling or being pushed back by a building code or anything of the sort. And we had to find a way to come up with a new standard of building that would suffice to any human being to be able to assemble a safe, durable, sustainable, ecological thermal envelope that then you can flip whatever cosmetics you want on it wherever you are in the world. Because as you look at the most important capital investment in your lifetime, it is the less durable product most probably that you have, including your garments or your cars nowadays with the warranties you have on them and so on and so forth. So there's some sort of a paradox here. People are putting millions of dollars in homes. They don't know what's behind the walls. The homes are rotting. They've got some structural issues. Their kids have asthma, pulmonary issues. There's health issues related to that, but we don't know where it's coming from, and a lot comes from where you're living and where you're going to school, and the integrity of those buildings.
Right.
So that's a short version of how it started.
That's the short version.
That's a short version.
I gotta say, I'm very relieved to hear that, because it sounds like you went through a similar process that I would end up going through, and I'm glad I'm not going to. Your houses enable a buyer, an owner of one of your homes, to live completely off the grid in a zero carbon way, wherein your actual carbon contribution to the environment is net negative or better, and your energy produced is actually more than you consume.
Absolutely. That's what we do. We're very, very present in California. So we're a Canadian-based company. We're proud to be a Canadian company that has patents in 25 countries. But because of legislation, you've probably heard that California has passed a law that if you want to build a house in 2020, it must be net zero.
Yeah.
So exactly as you define it, is that
Toronto's going to be there in 2030.
Well, supposedly. But if you look at the big picture, they should make it by 2025, because they're going to have some serious energy issues by 2030. So you just can't wait to hit the wall to start doing things the right way.
Sure.
So yes, because of the quality of the thermal envelope that the bone structure gives you, you'll save 90% of your energy bill in terms of heating and cooling by default. Then it is to substantiate that with complementary solar panels and energy management softwares and so on and so forth. But here again, I'm always trying to demystify this and simplify the whole thing about net zero. And what people have to remember is that if your house is not well built and does not have a thermal envelope, and you're heating and cooling, even though if you have solar panels or you have high-tech thermostats or every gizmo that Dominic will give you, well, it's like driving your car in the winter with full heating on with your windows open. I don't care how good your dashboard controls are or how cutesy-wootsy they are, but there's no efficiency there. You must have a well-integrated design thermal envelope that is also well-positioned on your lot in accordance to what Mother Nature has to offer you in terms of solar energy, but also take into concern the winds, the drafts, the foliage, the evergreens on your land, or maybe a six-story condo tower on the left side of your lot. And all of that impacts the design. And that's what we bring to bone structure. We've taken the art of architecture and bring it to the science of digital design. Every one of our homes is digitally designed with the same type of computer softwares to design jet planes.
Wow.
So it's to that extreme precision. So we know that at 3:30 on February 14 in the afternoon, where the sun will be in accordance to your longitude, latitude, and that vase on your kitchen countertop is going to have an effect because it's creating a shadow and it's going to have an impact on your energy bill.
Right.
So I'm pushing it to demonstrate that it's not just about designing a beautiful house. And unfortunately, I just came back this morning from a project almost close to Buffalo. And you see that people have designed what they think are beautiful houses, but they're not comfortable in them. Yes, they took advantage of the front lake, but you can see that they almost have to
Bundle up.
clean themselves inside the house with that suntan lotion.
Okay, so your houses are energy efficient. Obviously, there's huge financial considerations in that. How much more expensive is it to build one of your houses relative to a conventional home?
Well, the jury is still out, and I'll tell you why. Because every single home is a custom home. Now, what I would want your audience to remember here is think as they're passing by any construction job site. The first thing they will see that first morning is a huge garbage container that will be filled up 8, 9, 10, 15 times with materials that have been paid with their hard-earned money. Brand new materials going into the dumpster from the get-go. With a bone structure home, you do not have that.
Wow.
Because it's a big mechanorector set. Everything is assembled on the job site with battery pack drills. So no matter the available carpenters in the area or their local labor, no matter their knowledge, it can be assembled like a big toy. Just with one tool, battery pack drill. 95% of the screws going into that house is the same screw. Everything is pre-pierced, everything is pre-cut. There's no cutting, there's no piercing. So basically, it's assembled. It's not built on site, it's assembled on site. And it's not a modular home. And it's not a prefab home. It's something totally distinctive. It's something much more closer to the aerospace and the automotive industry in terms of process, in terms of materials. So as you probably read, it's a galvanized steel system. It's a galvanized steel product. 89% of our steel comes from recycled steel. So our contribution to sustainability and eco-responsibility is not a greenwashing type of marketing. It's the real thing.
Wow, okay, so now I have to ask, because probably a lot of homeowners think this. We live in Ontario. The daylight during the winter is not like it is in California. Does that mean I can still build an off-the-grid home in say, Niagara region of Ontario?
Sure.
Really?
Sure, you can. Now, the logical question here is, should you push it to that extent? Is it to your benefit to take it to that extent? So if the hydro is available in your area or some other source of energy, what we will do is, as we design your house in terms of volumetry, in terms of passive solar energy, we will also look at what is available locally. So the projects that we've done that were totally off the grid was because there wasn't any natural resource or hydro possibilities, because you can take advantage of the hydro system, as we do mostly in California. California, the cheapest source of energy is gas. And we did a house there. We're doing plenty of houses. 50% of our business right now is in California. But we've done a house where because of the way we've designed it and the solar panels we've installed in it, we didn't need as much solar panels as a typical house, traditional house, because of the quality of the thermal envelope. Now, this gentleman, which is a very well-renowned professor at Mark Z. Jacobson from Stanford, he's the guru of sustainability. He chose Bone Structure, a Canadian company, to build his own house on the Stanford campus. Now, he's got 3 electric cars. His whole house is electric. His barbecue is electric. He didn't even bother to get a gas line into the house. And he receives a check from the utility company every year. So he's not
selling
net
power
zero.
back to the grid.
He's positive.
Wow.
So that's where all the energy management logic comes in. It's not because you can do it off the grid that you would want to do it off the grid. Maybe you want to have it on the grid, but pull on the grid during the evening or during the night, store that energy, store the energy from the sunlight, and manage this energy to your benefit, and basically resell that energy or that overflow of energy to your profit.
Sure. Okay, and finally, our viewers have been asking, since I've been talking about bone structure, why bone structure? What is the relevance of the word
Well,
bone?
that's where it comes to this little abstract of philosophy. When you think of it, for us, the human species, and if you were to ask yourself, what is the best ever product, quote, best ever design structure, no contest, is probably the human body.
Right.
7 billion of us are walking around planet Earth. Males and females have the exact same number of bones, 206 bones. So the premise here is that we offer a structure. That is the most important part of a home. You could hear old adage saying, this house has good bones, right?
That's what they told me about the house that I'm going to tear down on this property.
Well, unfortunately, it was subject to what Mother Nature had to inflict on it, because the thermal envelope was not probably well done. So that's where the brand comes from. It's from the bone structure. So the human species has probably the best ever bone structure. It has not evolved. Some of us, or like me, have a little bit more insulation than others.
Right.
But we're all basically customized, except for a couple of sets of triplets out there.
Right.
So that's the beauty. And that's what a home should be. A home should be unique in a sense that it is well integrated into what Mother Nature has to offer first and foremost. It should well give the benefit to its actual users, but it should also, in terms of responsibility to the humankind, should be there in 50, 75, 100 years and be able to adapt to its new generation. So a bone structure home has just about no interior load-bearing walls, meaning that when your kids leave home at the age of 28, you can tear down those bedroom walls, literally, with your favorite brother-in-law. When they come back at the age of 32, with triplets, you can put up some walls and add doors and windows, even if you have a double height ceiling of 24 feet with your favorite brother-in-law, without affecting the integrity of the structure. You will be able to redesign the inside and the outside of that home, because the structure will be just as perfect.
That excites me to no end. You can't believe it. Mark, we're going to have to leave it there for now. You will be able to follow along as I build my bone structure house, I'm hoping, starting in the spring of 2020. Mark, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, and looking forward to serve you.
All right. We'll be back in a minute. Ed Milewski will wrap up with the charts on the cannabis industry. We'll take one last look at S&P 500 right after this little...
If you like the show, you'll love our website. Visit us at www.midasletter.com for interviews with key CEOs, cannabis news, and to subscribe to our newsletter. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Make sure you never miss a show by subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking on the little notifications bell. If you're interested in getting monthly actionable investment ideas in the cannabis space to your inbox, subscribe to the newsletter at midasletter.com.
What do you think, Ed? A house that you can change the interior of without tearing it down and
In other
rebuilding
words,
it.
the bone structure is the same.
The bone structure is the same.
Yeah.
Good bones takes on a whole new meaning. I'm excited about this. I mean, I can't tell you how excited I am because it's not just the house that I'm hoping to make a bone structure envelope, but also the farm buildings, the outbuildings, the garage. It's
Sure.
like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'll be able to stop. I've got 28 acres to fill up. So boathouse, airstrip, hangar for aircraft, space station, research center.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Put up a wall.
I gotta put up a wall. I'm gonna dig a moat. I'm gonna extend the river. Anyways, let's take a last look at this cannabis market, which is just looking so woeful today. Cannabis, well, it's made a bit of a comeback later in the day. The venture index is now only down 5% instead of 6%.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. The large cap index is now down almost full 7% again today. And let's see, all the indexes are down. It's interesting, the CSE index is down 7.3%. The large cap cannabis index is down 6.92%. These indexes are walking in lockstep as these are the largest capitalized companies in both indexes.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to reconfigure that.
I think so.
Does this downward trend remind you of anything? Does that remind you of another sector that squealed and screamed into oblivion and everybody thought, oh, it's just a temporary thing and it'll come roaring back? Do you remember what industry that would have been?
Blockchain?
No, 2012. Mining.
Lithium.
Doesn't that look like the TSX Venture back in 2012?
No.
What do you mean no?
I don't think so.
Here.
I don't know.
You don't, you don't think so, but you don't know.
Well, okay. You mean like what? How long is that chart there we're looking at?
Well, that's this is 1 year.
Right.
So I'm going to pull up the TMX. I'm going to pull up the TSX Venture chart just for a quick look here. S&P TSX Venture. Here we go. Like, is it a coincidence that the S&P TSX Venture is also trading at about 583?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been. I don't like the looks of that TSX Venture.
You don't, eh?
No.
What don't you like about it?
Well, if you go back to 2010, 11.
Yes.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. Now I get it. Okay, so it peaked in 2011. In 2012 and 13, it came off dramatically.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Is that it there?
No, I'm still trying to get it. Well, that's an S&P TS. Yeah, that's the S&P TSX Venture. But so see, look at 2012.
Yeah, look at that.
See that peak?
Ooh.
And what does that not, like, let's take a quick look. Does that not look like, where did it go now? Oh, I just had it here. What the hell we've got? Okay, cannabis. Okay, let's try to get this together here before we use our, what the hell?
Before we lose our minds.
As if I want to go to Weed Maps.
Well, you know what? Maybe what we should do tomorrow
Okay,
is
here we go.
do a proper comparison.
Here is, now look at that,
Yeah.
and look at the chart down in the lower right.
I don't see it. I see that drop. Yeah, that part.
Well, actually,
that part. See
no,
that
but
part?
even if you were to back out the TSX Venture chart another 2 years, you'd see the exact same thing. It peaked back in 2010, was it?
No, I think 12.
No,
11 or 12. At the peak with the price of gold. Gold peaked in 11.
No, it didn't come back that high. Yeah, okay, so see? Look at that chart.
That part. Okay, so that.
Yeah, but
you're
it
talking,
peaked, and then it troughed, and then it peaked again in 2012, and then it troughed. Exactly like what's happening here, but in a, we're not looking at
exactly
it
the same, but only different.
Exactly the same in the structure of the evolution of the asset class.
Right.
big peak, valley, rally back, now going for the big deep sleep. Is that what's happening in cannabis? I know who would disagree with us, and that's the Wolf of Wall Street, who's the perpetual bull on cannabis stocks, always coming roaring back after the September summer meltdown. Maybe this year he might be wrong.
I think you're right in that bubbles tend to, the charts of bubbles, and let's say the marijuana space was a bubble and the gold space was a bubble back in 2011, 12, although with gold rallying now, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's going to...
Maybe it was just a correction, a 5-year correction. Well, this is the point that we were always trying to make as all of us wingnut writers in the far fringe of the cannabis commentary, is that the onset of the financial crisis, or the offset of the financial crisis that began in 2008 was actually quantitative easing and zero interest rate policy, which only put a Band-Aid optically on the market and created the possibility for U.S. stocks to achieve new highs. All of that is artificially created. That's what we're sticking to, and gold and the performance of the S&P will prove that to be the case eventually. Take another 5-10 years, but it's going to happen. I'll still be here. Anyways, that's our show for today. So thank you very much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with yet another show. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. We'll see you tomorrow.